Rachel, thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Absolutely. Happy to be
Uh,
here.
yeah, it's funny how we were going to do this COVID time. I remember we talked about connecting back then, and life was very different, obviously, for both of us. But fast forward, here we are, and both
Yeah.
in very different spaces than we were at that time.
Yeah, we planted the seed and it's finally coming into fruition.
Yeah, yeah, it's grown. As someone who doesn't know you, how would you describe yourself? No, I'm gonna reword that because I just fucking am way too scatterbrained right now thinking about COVID and your bodybuilding years and all the background. I'm like, man, there's so much stuff changed since then.
Yeah.
Um, how do you describe yourself to a room full of people who don't know you?
Hmm. All right, let me feel into this. Um, I would say I've always described myself as like an options facilitator. I feel like when people come to me, a lot of times it's like the brilliancy of like being an empath is people feel safe to share their heart with me. And I'm good at listening to that and listening to body language, but then it's almost like I'm also really intuitive with going, okay, you're saying how much you don't want these things, so how can I lead this conversation to almost like shift it?
Hmm.
And like offering different options to people. I would say I'm very kind, I'm very open-hearted, I am spastic. Humor is huge for me, like always trying to keep it funny.
Hmm.
Um, and I would say most of the time I walk in the room and I just get the comment of like, I've never met anyone like you. Like you're so bubbly, you're so alive. But at the same time, I'm extremely internal most of the time.
Hmm.
And I like to spend a lot of my time alone, kind of just digging into my own mind and wants and desires and yeah,
Hmm. It's interesting. What mine goes immediately to, do you think there's any tie to having chronic pain and fatigue for years and people getting the immediate feeling that you're very alive?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
always say, obviously when the chronic pain got as bad as it did, there was a part of me that was like, life isn't worth living anymore. But what I've learned from the glimmer moments is what I refer to them.
Hmm.
You're just able to take in so much more beauty of this life. And I notice the things that people like complain about, I just can't
Yeah.
even comprehend. Like it seems so minuscule, and that's not dismissing anyone or anything, but I do think that, you know, when I'm feeling like really down and drudged, the signal from my body is like move, be alive, like
Hmm.
this is life. And I think the more that I dive into the pain, it's brought me to like so much compassion for myself and others.
Hmm.
Of like if we're defining compassion as like I feel like my role on this planet is to alleviate other suffering and my own. Um, and when you're in a compassionate state, it's like this like loving grandma energy where you don't want to change or fix anyone, but
Right.
it's I see you, I'm understanding you, and I think pain has made me a really curious person
Hmm.
instead of a reactive person. Um,
Yeah. Do you have any idea for you what might have pointed you in that direction versus like reactivity or that, say, complaining state and that what even victim mortality, right? That's super common
yeah.
now.
I would say a lot of this work was, I learned a lot from working with the plant medicine of ayahuasca and specifically the moments where you have to absolutely face yourself. And as soon as we go outward and external, we're losing the medicine because
Hmm.
we're responding of just like chaos, like, I don't want this, I don't want this, and just like pushing it all away instead of going, what would happen if I welcomed this in?
Hmm.
And I think one thing that we need to learn when it comes to like hardship is the more that we allow it to come in and like crack us wide open, the better we're gonna get at like flowing with it. Because it is a game.
Oh
Like
yeah.
life is a game.
Yeah.
So I think too, a lot of my plant medicine experiences, it's been like I'm in a game. And I'm like, okay, it's not about winning or losing. It's just like what direction, what path do I want to take?
Hmm. My mind immediately goes to acceptance, both in the whether it's pain or this crisis situation in life, as well as with plant medicines as well. The longer you fight against it, and again, I think about this contractive state, as long as we stay contracted and try to hang on, it just gets worse and worse and worse. There's anxiety and tension and all this stuff. As soon as we release and accept, we're able to expand. And that's just like immediately, well, it's practice too, right? As you say, with
Yeah.
chronic pain, you have a lot of practice uh, accepting this is my reality. And there's this thought of, well, what do I do about it? Well, the answer is really nothing, like about it. And so it's a question of what am I going to do as well? And it's like, there's all the potential, right? Well, let's just try some stuff because it's already bad and hard. And so what do I have to lose, right? It's like, worst
Yeah.
case, I end up back in bed in more pain, but I'm already in pain. And so what's the difference?
And I think people get confused with acceptance, where they think that like acceptance is like, okay, here's where I'm at. Now I'm gonna like lay down and die and
Yeah,
go
it's
into
not
like
passivity.
a freeze response. But acceptance is going, here's where I'm at. Where do I want to go? And then it always comes back to the body too. It's like
Mm,
tune into the body. What does the body say right now? Because you might feel like extremely fatigued, don't want to get up, and your body is like, go for a walk. And it's like, okay. It
yeah,
doesn't mean it's gonna feel good on the walk. It doesn't like
no,
none of that, but it's simply like I think the way that we start to like shift our timelines, our realities, our relationships to the hard things is to truly listen to the body instead of the mind.
absolutely. Because as you
And
said, move the body. It's a simple thing. And like my good friend, that's one of his things he posts all the time, move the body. And it's you never get so one of the two things that I know to be true is that you never get better if you don't sleep. And like sleep brings new options, whether they're good, better, or different. Um, Sleeping is important and moving is equally as important. Because if you just lay in bed, you will literally just die. Right. And
yeah,
that's one of the truths that I know to be true. And one of the reasons why I don't ever see it as an option. Like you just, I don't know, there's this thought process of how do you just get up all the time or how do you work through all these things? It's like, how do you even see that as a potential like option to choose? Like it's just not even there. It doesn't exist. But
yeah.
it's a
And
different outlook.
if we get like super woo-woo with it, you know, it's crazy that like I think a lot of people's fear is like dying and like crisis and this and that, but like I'm at a point where I've already like faced a lot of these things. So now my biggest fear is like not reaching my potential in this lifetime
Right.
because I mean my own belief is like we're souls and we're choosing to come to this earth in human form, which is like the most powerful thing that we can do. Like
Mm,
we're coming here to experience life as humans. So we have options on what path we want to take, and a path might take us to our greater good, or a path might take us to self-destruction.
yeah, more chaos.
They all serve a purpose though. So like to me, I'm like, good God, I don't want to come back next lifetime and like be like my best option is to lay in bed and be chronically ill. It's
Right.
like, no, that's not. My soul knows better. So,
Mm,
and it comes back again, like listening to the body, because the soul is the body. It's
right.
like, yeah,
Yeah. Now what? So I guess one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is this something that I call perpetual healing, which is essentially something that I see I guess in the space of plant medicines and even therapy and all of these modalities. And I do, I see the value in all of these things. I'm a fan of all these things or most of them. However, I also see people who have this like perpetual state of healing, which is like, I need to do another ceremony of this, or I'm going to, more things to work on in therapy. And what's my next step? And where do I go from here? And in my mind, the underlying message behind that to yourself is that I'm not good enough. And that's something that's it's a fine line to walk because it's, you know, what is my next stage of healing versus I'm not good enough as I am. It's like both of those things can be true and relevant, but it's like I find people get stuck. It's like, where do you step off and integrate and just try some shit and make mistakes and like live the life in front of you versus always looking to this next step? And you're someone who's learned like a wide breadth of modalities and techniques, and you've done a lot of different healings and journeys. And so you have a lot of insight into these things. What are your
So
thoughts on that?
my thoughts is that we don't spend enough time integrating. I see
Yeah.
a huge gap in people that do all this plant medicine and then come to the integration process. Your integration is waking up every day going, who do I want to be? And walking as that person. And when crisis comes up, shit hits the fan, ugly emotions come up, you face it then.
Hmm.
I really don't like this idea of like, because I've spent so much time doing it, like digging up more stuff, digging up more stuff. Because we also think of it, when I started getting more into like the quantum realm of healing, where you're learning like frequency, vibration, the more that you keep going back and digging up all the shit that you don't like about yourself, you're just lowering that frequency again and again, and you're ending up stuck. So I think it's more about going like, I'll give an example of me. So I'm like, okay, I really want to create this membership. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't even know if it'll work. And it's like, okay, but I'm in the mind, I'm not in the body. So like, why don't I just like sit down and record a practice and like start? Because
Hmm.
I already see the picture. I know what I want. There's an intention. It's of being service to others and myself, which is
Hmm.
also the key. And taking that leap. So like I think too, when we get caught in we're making healing way harder than it needs to be.
Hmm.
Like I read a post from another healer I follow and they said something like, if you're having to do like breath work, EFT, hypnosis, meditation, blah, 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 like this whole like laundry list of shit
Hmm.
every day, like you're missing a huge part of just like integrating the shadow.
Yeah, just live the
So,
life.
like a simple thing that I do like throughout the day now, I'm like, what part of me doesn't want to change?
Hmm.
And then that comes up, and then you keep, but it's this idea of like almost like rapid fire question
Right.
instead of like thinking in it. So it's like, what part of me doesn't want to change? And it's like the part that wants to stay victim. Okay, what am I benefiting from staying victim? Okay, I get to keep all these people in my life.
Hmm.
If I get to keep all these people in my life, what do I get? Oh, connection. But is this the type of connection that I want? No. And then you
Right.
just keep going until you get to the root of like, oh, I want to feel intimacy,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like, and then I go, body, how could I like have intimacy? And it's like, go take a bath and just like love on yourself.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay, action step.
Yeah. Done.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to like this perpetual state of healing, we really have to face that part of ourselves that thinks that we are inherently broken,
Hmm.
that there is something that is wrong with us. And when you like dive in, like the thing about it too, we get lost in the story of like where it comes from. So like I have done a lot of like womb healing and like utero trauma.
Hmm.
Like your like let's say your parents were having like some like weird sex energy when they were like conceiving you, where it's like kind of anxious and like worrisome, and then like your mom finds out she's pregnant and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So then, like, that's implanted in you. Okay, cool. That's where it comes from. That really doesn't do anything for us to change it.
Yeah.
It just goes like, okay, that's where it comes from. But like, how do you want to live in this world? Do you want to know that you are part of this like beautiful contribution to society?
Hmm.
Or do you want to lay dead in your bed?
Well, in my mind, go straight to why doesn't always matter,
It doesn't.
right? And like it can matter specifically in hindsight and specifically in terms of not repeating cycles that aren't serving you and all these types of things. But regardless of why, the question then is, what difference does it make? Sometimes it makes a difference. A lot of the times it really fucking doesn't. And then the next question is always, what are we going to do about it? Right? Like, what now? Where do we start? And that's why it's on my whiteboard. That's what I do with clients. It's how my brain works. It's like all these things can be true and part of reality. And
Yeah.
what next? Right? What are you
Well,
going to do?
and I think we're not in control of our healing,
Right.
and we have to like let that go too.
Do you think that
Um,
that's a like ego taking over in the equation of everything? Yeah.
so like even when it comes to, whether you've worked with psilocybin, MDMA, ayahuasca, San Pedro, any of these medicines, you're still developing an ego with them.
Sure.
So we always think of like ego dissolution. We don't actually want an ego to completely dissolve. Like it serves a
No,
purpose.
absolutely.
But something like I've seen, I've been like, I'll even give an example of like I was supposed to volunteer for a ceremony. Ceremony starts, I take a facilitator dose, and I'm like down on my ass, out of commission, can't help anyone.
Mhm.
I had no control over that. That is apparently what I needed to do in that moment. And I had to accept this is
Right.
perfect as it is. For me to be of service to someone, I guess I have to work through this, right?
Mhm.
But then there's been other instances of like, I've even caught myself in ceremony, like everyone's super overwhelmed. I'm starting to take that off and just like muttering to myself, like, this moment as it is completely perfect and nothing needs to change.
Mhm.
And poof, everything calms. So I think it's also like realizing like we don't have control of our life. Like we have to just like take our hands off the rein.
Right.
Like picture this dream that you have, but like we can't just keep searching for things to heal because we're going to heal our entire life regardless.
Right.
I truly think that like taking an inventory of your life and like walking around and seeing the relationships you have with people and like the conversations you have to day is going to reveal where you're at.
Kind of that energy balance of energy coming in versus energy going out. And what does
Yeah,
that look like? What are those energies? And are they benefiting you? I mean, you as in both of the people involved or all of the people involved or not. Um, well, that even ties into like day-to-day fulfillment and energy in yourself. Like if you're feeling tired all the time, think about, okay, well, I think out energy allocation, where is it going? What are you doing with it? And a lot of the time that answer is doing a bunch of shit you don't want to do with people you don't even really like. Sometimes you've got to just do those things and fair enough. Okay. But then you have that resistance. It's that control piece. And I still don't want to. And so you put more focus to it. Energy goes or energy flows where attention goes, is what I say in my mind. It's like if you're putting your attention on all this shit you don't want to do, more energy is going to continue to go there. You're going to continue to feel more tired. So, like, where do we start inserting these more energizing things? What actually gets you excited right now in this moment? What do you want to do? What livens you up? Sometimes it's like, I want to dance to a song or I want to call this person or, like, I don't know, fucking rub one out, do whatever it is. But, like, what's going to
right.
bring you some kind of like life right now? Try it. And then, like, I don't know, disconnect from sending energy towards the shit you don't want to do.
Yeah, and it's also like as you said, bringing joy to the mundane. I
Right.
think that will teach you the most about yourself and your healing.
Sure.
Like I always think about it like the way you make your tea or coffee in the morning. Like, are you doing it like this like super stressed state of like I have to get this done and I'm in a rush? Or like
Yeah.
can you approach it with like I'm making myself this amazing cup of coffee that is literally abundance and life force energy, and I'm gonna sit here and sip it and enjoy it.
Mm,
And also like that shit is really hard to do when you're starting.
mm,
But you've trained yourself to be in misery and agony, so you can train yourself
yeah.
to be in a state of joy and gratitude. And yeah, I mean,
That ties into
I
the thought
think,
of gratitude for you or for me. I don't like, not I don't like, I'm actually, yeah, I don't like gratitude lists myself
mm-mm,
because I find, anyways, I think it's weird. I don't know why they're needed. And like I see the utility, blah, blah, blah. I just think of a time where gratitude was the only thing that I could feel. Right. And I have multiple moments of these things. I talked about it on the one episode. I talked about nurse appreciation. But I'm wondering if it's similar for you in the sense that, like, I don't need a gratitude list to tell me about why I'm grateful. It's like I can literally think right now of a moment where I could do nothing and be grateful. And like it's just a full body goosebump thing. Everything happens like that's great. That's it. There's gratitude. And so to be able to draw that in when I'm out with Leroy at bedtime when he's peeing and we're both peeing in the middle of the road. And it's like, this is fucking sick. Who would have thought I just get to do all this stuff or making the coffee in the morning, sitting
yeah.
down like, I'm just down here making
Well,
coffee in the world. And like, it's all such a game, right? It's all easy down here.
what's been fascinating for me with gratitude, so after I went to my Joe Dispenza event in
Mm,
November, and I started to like really understand the quantum better, I realized like most of our meditation and gratitude practices aren't actually getting to the roots that we want to be in. We're just kind of getting to like this like branch level.
hmm.
So when we're connecting gratitude to a past event, we're in the past.
Yeah.
When we're connecting gratitude to something like right here, right now, we are in the now and also creating the future.
Mm,
So it's this idea of like take away the visualization, take away the experiences that already happened, cultivate that within yourself. And another thing I noticed with the Joe Dispenza work where it was like, I can't cultivate gratitude. So then I got curious, like, what part of me is blocking this? And it's like the simple thing that I went through with the questions. It's like, what part of me is blocking gratitude? The part of me that's scared. Why is this part of what part of me is scared?
mm,
Probably goes back to like a little kid age. And
mm,
then you go, okay, but the missing step I see with people is like validate yourself for not feeling gratitude. It's okay. Don't like shame yourself into
yeah.
like, what the
I should be
fuck? I
able
should
to.
be grateful. Yeah, I should
Yeah.
be able to do this.
Yeah.
Actually, a part of you doesn't feel safe doing that. So validate it
Mm, yep.
and then move forward. And
Yeah.
another thing too, like when it comes to these things, there's certain parts of myself that aren't ready to change right now.
Hmm.
Like there's certain parts of me that are like, no, I don't want to change your chronic neck pain. I want you to
Yeah.
have it. And I go, okay, like that's where you're at right now. But I'm really happy that I got to like meet you, form a relationship with you.
Hmm.
And it I think that in itself will form gratitude when you start to like honor all the parts of yourself with compassion.
Yeah. I'm reminded of like parts integration in terms of NLP work, but it's
Yeah.
the same thing. It's like thank this part of you for whatever it's doing, and that's a whole other leg of things. But like it's exactly what you're talking about. And well, I mean, you're doing it, right? But
Yeah.
it's you acknowledging it and accepting that it's there versus like trying to pull the blanket over it all the time and pretend that it's not. It's like that's never going to improve anything in your life. And you just have this constant piece of attention now. Don't pull the blanket back, right? We don't want to see under the rug. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I also think a big thing that gets in the way of people's healing is we think healing means that we're going to reach perfection.
Mm,
And perfection doesn't exist because we're always perfect as we are in every moment.
sure.
every experience is perfect, and
No
we don't like to hear
paradox.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we don't like to hear that when it's like something really shitty and hard,
Right.
but like it is perfect in
What
itself.
else? What else would it be?
Right.
Yeah. We take a hard left turn into the core question. How would you describe your relationship with death?
Mm, this is interesting. This is something that I just finished doing a lot of shadow work around.
Mm,
Um, I have always been told that I'm a little morbid, uh, because I look at death as like beautiful
mm,
and like obviously I've lost people close to me. Like the one that comes to mind specifically is my grandma, who
right.
was like my mom. But at the same time, like it was so she had that moment of clarity before she died where she was like herself, like her full self. Like think of like inner child, like
Yeah.
just doing what you want.
Sure.
And then she passed. But at the same time, like I literally remember waking up from the dream and like knowing like I am okay now. Like I am at complete peace.
Hmm.
Um, and like my own experiences with death, I've had near death experiences, but they weren't this like clarity where you go to heaven.
Yeah.
Actually, it was like insinuating the hell on earth I had created.
Mm,
And it was like, yeah, I could die right now, but that's too easy.
right.
Like that is the easy way out
You
if
got to
I
go
were to
back to
like
deal with the shit.
yeah, it was like you're
Yeah.
not ready. And I think too something that I've unraveled just as like I am tapping more into like my spiritual self, mediumship, like death magic is like so sacred because we think about like throughout our life, like we actually die like multiple times. Like we're always taking on new identities.
Yeah.
Some people don't if they're not like tapped in and wanting to like change their reality. And
Hmm.
that's okay because we all have different missions. But when you like tap into this like death magic, it's like super sacred and it's like extreme, like it's the epitome of alchemy. It's
Mm,
like I'm going to take this like into the earth, into the roots, like let it swallow whole, and I'm gonna pop out something completely new.
right. I've,
Um,
it just reminded me of, I forget even where this came from, but I had a thought maybe a couple years ago about like, what if every single night when the moon goes down and we go to bed, when we wake up, like we go to bed and we everything disappears, we're all dead. And then when we wake up in the morning, there just happens to be all the same shit in the same places all the time. Like Leroy happens to wake up in his crate and we get to keep on doing cool shit. And like all these things just happen because they like disappear and reappear almost. And so it
yeah.
kind of reminds me of that. It's like, well, maybe every single day we just do die because of the old version of ourselves does. And then we wake up someone else. And now we're navigating
But
the
we
world as them.
do.
Yeah.
Like I think that like I wake up every morning, I'm like, I don't know who the fuck I am.
Right.
And like
Sure.
some people like and I don't think it'll be this way forever, but like right now it's like I legit wake up in the morning and I'm like, who am I? What do
Mm,
I want? What's
right.
happening? What? But like at the same time, I always go back to this statement of like even with my own pain, I'm waiting to wake up and feel like I'm in a 11-year-old's body. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When like obviously you've dealt with like childhood
Yeah.
illness, but
Yeah.
you didn't have all these emotional attachments to it then, so it
Mm.
still was like you could like wake up and like still feel like a kid
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
be free almost,
The
right?
curiosity and the like, oh, this is a little bit restrictive, but also I'm just ignoring it almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I always like go back to that and like the mornings where I wake up and like the judge and like grudge and blah,
Yeah.
I'm like, not today, ma'am. We
Yeah.
are gonna have a good day. It's perfect. It's
Uh-huh.
gonna be great. But yeah, I think another powerful thing and like something that I've been experiencing or experimenting with is doing a death meditation
Mm,
where like you just simply like go into a meditation, just like put on some like I usually do like root chakra type beats. Um, and I just go, if this were my like last moment on earth, let me take a good scan of my life.
right.
And I don't know a better way to cultivate gratitude
Sure.
because you even get to a point where like the hardship, you're like, yeah,
Mhm.
like, thank you.
This is it.
Thank
Yeah, we're
you.
doing it right now. Yeah.
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 It's like,
Yeah.
wow. And you also, I think, especially if you're like in a state of whether it's like depression or chronic illness or this and that, like
Mhm.
if you do a death meditation, it goes like, nah, this is not the story of my life.
Yeah.
Like it's not. Th-
It's the same question. Who do I want to be?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Christmas Day 2016, I woke up with this full body sensation that this is my last Christmas I'm going to wake up. And so I'm like, where's this coming from? I wasn't concerned in the slightest, but I was like, oh, this is new. And
yeah,
so, anyways, I had a whole bunch of shit going on in my life at that time. But long story short, I decided if this is my last winter, I'm going to be alive. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be around? Let's start doing those things. And same thing when springtime came. If this is my last spring, what do I want to do? Try and do those. And how much of these things can I do now with the resources I currently have available to me? Right. Like this isn't some ethereal, I want to travel around the world 16 times and go live in the jungle for 6 months. Like maybe, but also like one of the things was there's a little like river with a pipe around it or whatever, the highway to the hospital to London. At the time I was driving by 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a nice mist on it, this whole pretty scene. And like it only happens for about 2 months of the year because then the seasons change, right?
yeah.
But I always, every single time, think, oh, I should pull over and sit here for a bit and just look, right? I'm like, oh, I'll do it next time. I'll do it next time. I don't have time today. And so the next time that was, anyways, I drove by, fucking pulled right over. I'm like, fuck all this. I've been doing this for years, literally a decade or more. And I always say, I'll pull over next time. Never do. Now's the
Yeah,
time. And it was fucking sweet. You like watch the sun come up over this little field and like, it's
right.
beautiful. Take it in, appreciate the fucking moment, and carry on. Because it might be the last time you get to do it. And not because you die, but maybe you move, or maybe who knows what life is going to do. And so, like, take the opportunity when you fucking can.
Something that just came to mind when you were talking about that. So I tried ketamine treatment for my chronic pain,
Mhm.
which worst experience of my life, straight up. Like,
Okay.
which sounds crazy,
Do not
but like,
recommend. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, some people might like it. I didn't. I think I learned in that experience. It was like I was literally just like I had like one thought before it clicked in, and it was like something about my ex-partner, but like I don't even know
Mm,
what. It was just like his name. And then I couldn't feel anything.
mm,
No emotions.
just
I couldn't
numb.
connect to my higher self. I couldn't really feel my body. And I was laying there just like panicked, but like unable to even feel the panic.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Even though I have a lot of negative emotions, like I'll take that shit over this shit any day of the week.
Hmm.
And I mean, I did this like medical setting practitioner, and I straight up, I was supposed to have like 5 more sessions. I only did one.
Yeah.
And I like told them like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Hmm.
And they were like, no, we've seen like really good turnaround like with people's pain. And I was like, ah, nah. Just
Not for me, not today. Yeah.
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 And I've heard other people's like experience with it, but I think that also like I'm at a point now where like I've faced my escapism so hard that like I'm not willing to escape anything anymore.
Mm,
I don't feel like I need like some savior ladder. I'm like, no, it's here right now. And I am internally resourced.
mhm.
So I want to feel it all.
How do you start someone down that path then? Like, say, because there are so many different options in, well, just in general, right? As we said, with different medicines and therapies and modalities, right? Yoga, right? You've got all these
Yeah.
somatic work. How do you, or do you have a process to like go through with people to find the place to start for the individual versus like just try a bunch of stuff and see what works?
I think, when people do one-on-ones with me, I have this whole toolkit of stuff we could do.
Mm,
And what I usually start with is like they tell me how they're feeling, and I like basically reiterate back to them the way they're feeling to like get clear on like
yeah.
what we're in. I ask them what their life looks like, and then before they even start with me, my intake form is going over 7-year cycles of their life. So
Okay.
like 1 to 7, 7 to 14, and like ask all the way till however old they are.
Right.
Asking them just like diagnosis, illness, traumatic events, like list it out. Doesn't have to be like a story, just like
Yeah.
list it out.
Yep.
So like
Information
already
based.
when they, yeah, already when they come to me, I'm like, okay, I have an idea of like what your body has been through. So for me, when someone starts with me, I'm usually like, all right, well, let's go ahead and like tone your vagus nerve because that'll immediately get you in a calmer state.
Hmm.
And then from there, I think breath work, but not in a sense of doing these like really intense breathing processes. Like, can I get you to just focus on your breath to only be in your body?
Yeah. Find your body.
Okay, amazing. Now, what is the first thing that your body wants to say?
Mhm.
But we do it in a way of like, I'm like, what do your hands want to do? Do they
Right.
want to like curl up? Do they want to extend? Do they, right? And I have them like go into like this like character almost of like what they are feeling. So usually I'll start with like hands, head, face, chest, shoulders, hips, knees, and I'm like, go into this character. If you need to lie down, sit, stand, whatever it is.
Position yourself. Yeah.
But from there, then, I'm like, all right, let's go into the voice. Like, what does the body want to say? And like, it could be gibberish. It could be like a sound. It could be nothing. It
Hmm.
could be like, I need to like say absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, from there, it's almost like we do like a dance. So I'm like, all right, I want you to go into the complete opposite of what you're doing right now.
Oh yeah.
So then we go into the opposite and they're like, this is really uncomfortable. And I'm like, yep,
Sure.
it is, but we can't avoid the discomfort. And then eventually we're like creating this like dialogue with the body, and boom, we find 1 or 2 action steps.
Right.
And from there, I can like better assess like what do we need to do from here.
Once you get
But
a direction, yeah, you can
yeah,
figure out
I
the next
think
step.
one of the most powerful things is most of the people that are working with me, they've done the talk therapy,
Hmm.
they've done this, they've done that. Like,
Yeah.
I get you fucking hate your life and you don't want to feel this way anymore.
Sure.
But we have to acknowledge that part of you that
Yeah.
thinks that this is the best option.
Well, and
And then
it's all this story based stuff too, right? It's you can change a lot when you change the stories and even just how you frame the stories too, right? It's the information that we recall was brought in through a lens of whatever state our nervous system was in at the time that it happened, and now it's stuck there, right? So,
yeah,
but we can reshape it now, like, okay, well, we're not in that state anymore, and you can go back. But a lot of the time, it's not consciously talked about, right? It's not this state of like, let's go back and reframe this so that when it comes to mind, you don't go it's immediately into this contractive state. But even as you're saying, right, is this pendulum swinging between the comfortable and the uncomfortable, you start becoming a lot more comfortable with all of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
We also have to reframe the negative emotions
Mm. In what way?
because it's so like I think of I'll use this example because it's something I've been working with. Scarcity.
Mm.
Like we think of scarcity as lack, but we could also think of scarcity as something that is so precious and pure and limited to us that like we are so terrified of losing it.
Right.
So like, scarcity people go, I don't have enough money. And then I'm like, okay, I hear you. But like let's reframe that. And then almost, let's see, I've done this practice with probably 10 clients so
Hmm.
far. Almost every single one of them at the end of it comes to, I don't give myself enough love. And it's like, has nothing to do with money.
Right.
Like, we have to start to like get curious about like why we have decided that certain emotions we're not allowed to feel. Or like, we also have this whole agenda of like, When I, like, for example, when I'm frustrated, like I feel frustrated that I'm frustrated,
Right.
but that frustration is actually like trying to get me to take an action step. So it's
Yeah.
like, can I like fully go into this frustration and then it can tell me the action step?
Yeah. It's what are you trying to show me, or what are you trying to do for me?
Or
Yeah.
like your anger, a boundary was violated. What
Right.
boundary?
Hmm.
Cool, that just showed you where your boundary is. Set that internally. And if someone doesn't like
Right.
respect it, they're not your person. You have to learn to stand up for yourself.
Well, more times
And
than not, it's a matter of the boundary wasn't there in the first place.
exactly. So
Yeah.
then you start to learn that like there is no blame because it's not on yourself, it's not on them.
Yeah. It just didn't
It's
happen.
like,
You're now aware of something that you are not okay with. That's literally okay. It's not, oh, I fucked up or they fucked up. It's like moving forward now, this is where the why does matter. Now you know why you feel uncomfortable or dysregulated right now. And you can do something to change that for the future. And then if that doesn't work, well, then you have that knowledge of, well, maybe this isn't someone I want to be around, or this energy exchange we talked about earlier. It's not worth my energy to go towards them because it's coming back as like a vacuum versus reciprocal.
right.
Yeah.
I think I think one of the most, I mean, obviously I've had like a shitload of stuff happen in my life, but like specifically like working through like my sexual trauma was one of the most eye-opening experiences for
Mhm.
me. And, you know, a lot of people don't get to the place that I'm at, but I had to literally like forgive these people and myself for what happened and for almost, it's not a blame thing either, but like I was in the vibration of I'm a victim.
Mhm.
So I did in some aspect attract that situation. And that's not victim blaming, but like when we get really clear on like it's stepping at it in a way of like empowerment. I don't want people to like listen to this and be like, that's fucked up and like whatever.
Right.
It's going, this thing happened to me and it was fucking horrible. And you validate the shit out of yourself for months, years, however long it takes. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But what did it teach you about yourself? How strong are you? How
Mhm.
can you take this awful thing that happened to you and transform it into good in the world?
Yeah.
And like for me, that's how I started coaching women to have pain-free sex.
Right.
Because like to me, I was like, this is like it's not fair. I was in this mentality, it's not fair that this person took this away from me. But
Mhm.
what my body was trying to communicate is I still don't feel safe with you. I need you to be with me.
Right.
So
It's
the more
alchemy.
I practice, yeah, the
Yeah.
more that I developed, I probably have like a way more intimate relationship with my body than I would have if these things hadn't happened.
Sure.
I also like would go as far to say I have a way better sex life than like 90% of people I talk to
Sure.
because I do this work with
Right.
myself to learn what I like, what my boundaries are, and attract partners that like,
It
you
lines
know,
up.
hold these same values.
It works. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like when we look at like what well-being is, like when we get to like a primal standard of it, it's like happy, horny, hungry.
Sure.
So like, and that might appear differently in people because there's also the trauma response with sexual trauma where you're like hypersexual.
Right.
But like it's also this energy of like, so am I happy, horny, and hungry every day? And if I'm not, like something out of my life is like,
Yeah. We're out of alignment here.
because I
Homeostasis.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we live in a society where it's almost like normal to become these like overachieving, like hyper fixated like mania states of like I have
Go,
this
go, go.
task, I'm going to get it done, and then you don't eat, you don't think about sex, you don't like
Yeah.
nothing. But like that's not we're still out of homeostasis.
Right.
And that could serve you at some point in your life, but it's about going, do I really want to stay here?
Yeah. No, and you're very right in the sense like that's in our primal state of being. What else was there like that made any difference in our lives, right? Are we safe? And if so, then well, it's when we go into sympathetic nervous state, right, blood flow goes away from our sexual organs because we're supposed to run away. As soon as that stress state is gone, it's supposed to go right back. Right? It's like,
Right.
oh, now we can focus on the other stuff to reproduce, to thrive and survive and continue on in the world. And yeah, it's interesting. Uh, just to kind of bring it all around like that. Yeah.
Well, and then, go even further, like, because obviously, like, with my neuro coaching stuff, I learned so much about the nervous system that it was like a humbling experience when I worked with plant medicine because it like showed me that like my own intelligence was like hindering my growth.
Sure.
Because I had this idea of like, I'm gonna rewire my nervous system and like do all these processes. And then, my soul was like, why don't you just be the person you want to be and it'll rewire?
Yeah. It's that lead, put the cart before the horse. Uh-huh.
So like I think there's so many amazing tools to like get yourself to a more regulated state, but regulation is going to look different for all of us in our environment, in our life.
Right.
And I think we also have to be okay with not being able to perform optimally in every environment, and that's okay.
Yeah, we're not supposed to. Right. It's
Like,
one of the ways that we guide ourselves into doing the things in the world that we want to do. Right. If we just were great at everything and loved everything, we would never get anything done. Or, well, that's not true. We could potentially just enjoy our lives more, which that's a nice option. Right. Like,
right,
well, when that ties back into the gratitude piece as well, that is accessible to all of us if we are able to tap into this sense of gratitude and even the what if today is the last one? How do you feel about that? Which could go into a state of anxiety too, as I kind of spiral down that side of things. Like, it's not where I would go naturally, but that doesn't mean that's not where a lot of people would go. So fair enough.
right. And that
But
also doesn't mean to like not create rest either.
right. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, if it was my last day, I probably would try to take a nap because it's like, well, I want to have energy for the end of it, you know? Fuck it.
well, and something I see from coaching women, and in myself, we have this resistance to like being in our feminine because the only time we're in it is when we're like burnout,
Right.
dying. So then we're like, this doesn't feel good. And it's like, right, because you're not like allowing yourself to
Yeah.
embrace it before things get bad. Like,
You're resisting it. Yeah.
what if I always go like when it comes to like healing chronic fatigue, like I wake up in the morning and I rest.
Mm,
Like I do a yoga nidra and I lay in bed and then
right.
I watch the sun come up and then I read a book and drink some tea and stretch. I
Right.
don't go get on a Peloton. I don't go do this. My
Right.
body doesn't want to. It wants to
Yeah.
rest. So like here's the season I'm in. But like if I really think about it, I don't like fast mornings. I like
Mhm.
slow mornings.
Yeah.
To
Well, same.
just
Today I got up, I'm like, oh, it's always breathing for me, right? It's like my first
yeah,
check in. But when I sat up, I'm like, oh, short of breath, sitting up a little bit, something going on in my body. So just sit for a minute. I'm like, I don't have anywhere to be right now. I'm gonna sit for a minute, and I know that gravity will help that as I like stand up and become vertical and
right.
walk around and move shit, right? That ties back to the moving piece. But like today's one of those days. All right. And then I sat there for maybe an extra minute, got up, get Leroy out because he's pumped all the time, right? But it's just like, and on we go. Because I know that it only gets worse if I lay in bed longer.
Yeah.
Like that's just the way it is.
Like
But I don't know. It's such an interesting observation to see that that's not the natural state of most people. It's like you can't name a time that life has got better where you've stayed up for 72 hours or laid in bed for 72 hours, really. Or I
yeah,
can't. Neither of those things are true. Or in my life experience, it's never happened. Even in a hospital setting, if I'm forced to be in bed for 3 days, life gets worse. Like I don't start to heal until I start to move. That's just
right.
kind of the way it is.
Same.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I woke up today extremely nauseous.
Mm,
And like I think normal people go, let me go get the ginger tea or let me take the Dramamine. And I was like, no, what are the thoughts in my head right now? And it was like just all this like
mm.
shit I don't want to do. And
Sure.
I was like, of course I'm nauseous right now.
Right.
Like, this is nauseating. Like, all this shit that I don't feel like doing, all these thoughts that like don't align with who I am. And it's
Mhm.
like in that moment, like taking a breath and going like, how do I actually want to think right now?
Right. Refocus, reframe. It's the energy flows where attention goes. Right back at it.
Right. And like
Yeah.
this season of my life is very internal, so I don't have a lot of energy to give to my friends, like outside of like a check-in here and there.
Hmm.
And that's okay. I think a lot of times we're like, oh
Yeah.
no, I'm cocooning. I'm definitely not cocooning. I'm out in the world every day,
Right.
but I don't have the capacity to talk. I want
Mine.
to just,
Yeah. Head down. Like I'm
yeah.
good. Or head up or chin up, head down. Right. It's like I'm good. And I
Even
got my blinders on for a bit.
the way that you walk in the world can change your state. Like if we're walking around like shoulders hunched over, like talking like this, like no one wants to talk to me.
Yeah.
But like can I like lift my chest open, like hard up and like walk in the world? Like walk as though you are it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm wondering, how is being a healer integrated into your identity? And how have you kept it from becoming who you are?
So being a healer integrated into my identity, one thing that's has stuck out to me a lot is just this phrase right here. At some point, you have to drop the identity of being a healer. And recently, I've dropped the identity of being a self healer because I think it's bullshit. I don't think that it's normal to do trauma work completely on your own. I
Right.
don't think it's normal to learn everything on your own. I think you need community. I think you need people who have already gone through the crossfires and been gifted tools to help do some of the heavy lifting. And like at the end of the day, we are never alone. We always have our like spirit team or whatever you believe in, right?
Yeah.
Like every time I'm sitting there doing embodiment work, like I see my like two like spirit guys just like behind me and they're like, fuck yeah, you got this shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so when I started to like sit with that and integrate like what does being a healer mean to me? It doesn't mean we'll go back to Jesus times. He wasn't a martyr. Jesus knew when to rest.
Mm.
Jesus knew when to ask for help. Jesus knew where he needed to go. He showed up, gave his best energy, approached them with that kind, old loving grandma
Right.
energy. And then we decided this guy's way too awesome. We're gonna kill him. Like I don't fall into this narrative of like I need to like carry on these burdens of people
Right.
to be a successful healer. I don't.
Right.
Some people have like really painful experiences and I can almost like get like drowned in their astral body when I'm working on them.
Mm.
And I have to set that energetic boundary of like, this isn't mine.
Yeah.
I don't even need to see this all. Like, I'm good. Can I see some rainbows right now? And a lot of times that'll happen for me.
Yeah. The details
So
don't
that,
matter right now.
yeah, so I can facilitate a better healing for this person, even. Um, but I think at the same time, when I started integrating it into my identity, I was like, this is part of me, but it's not all of me.
Mm.
Like, I think something that's been really important for me is having hobbies that I love
Right.
that have nothing to do with healing. Like, I like to play guitar and sing, and half the time I'm like playing Dua Lipa, Miley Cyrus. Like, it's not healing music, but
Yeah.
it's music or like pole dancing. I'm not healing shit. I just really like dancing on a pole and doing cool tricks and being proud that my body can do these things
Yeah.
now. Like,
Yeah.
I think we have to like compartmentalize, but also like integrate them. I've finally been able to like integrate the medicine woman in me and then like the athlete in me almost.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how can I like cohesively like,
Yeah. How can I have all these things be true at the same time and include them all in my life? Yeah. Day to day.
because if you are just a healer, it's very unfulfilling.
Sure.
Some might disagree with me, but like, no, I can't listen to horrible, painful stories all day, every day. Like it brought me down. So I
Right.
had to take time away and find the magic.
Do you find like I don't know that forgetting is what I would call it, but like the recollection piece isn't there unless prompted for me. Like if someone were to ask me, do you remember that conversation like a client we had 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? I would say no. But then if they specify like, well, I brought up this one thing, oh yeah, I remember that, and it comes back. But I feel like that's one piece that's useful for me in that it doesn't carry around on my shoulders because like I don't take it, as you said, I don't know if it's an energetic boundary or whatever, but I don't take it on, and I'm able to just offload. It's like, this isn't mine. This is just information. This isn't stress, right? Because it's not my stress. And so I'm not in taking it as stress. I'm taking it in as that information that I will then distill and mirror back, and we will navigate through this conversation to make progress and forward movement, period. And then when the conversation's over, my attention goes to the next moment or next conversation. And like, that's one piece of presence for me. It's like, I am not caught up in the stuff that I talked about 3 days ago because I'm talking about other shit now. I don't know. It's not that important. It's not in front of me
Well,
anymore.
I completely agree. And I think that's when like I mean most of my sessions I'm like tapped in. I'm like
Yeah.
channeling the higher self, Rachel. So like I can go on a tangent and I have no idea what I said. And like
Yeah.
that's honestly why like I have friends who like take notes of my voice memos to them because they're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I don't know what I just told you,
Yeah.
honestly. I'm sure it's great, but
Clip it, put it on TikTok. Sure. Whatever.
well, and even like when it comes to like making content, like for me, I just like really like Instagram stories when something's just like coming through and it's like share
Hmm.
this. I'm like, all right, sounds good. Like,
Sure.
um, but I think for me, I'm pretty good at remembering a client's story the entire time they're working with me,
Yes.
but I don't think about it outside of their session.
Right. Exactly. It's important to them and it's important to me in the sense that I'm along with them. However, it's not in front of me in my reality right now. And so it's on like a back burner somewhere in my mind. And it's just existing in its own space, right? Whether it's in the quantum or whatever, but like it's doing its own thing and our paths will connect again and then we'll check in and update. And
Right.
that's okay. It's like it doesn't matter how stressful it is or how major it is. Like either way, unless I'm gonna go there physically and put it into my reality in front of me, like it's not mine right now.
And I will say setting those energetic boundaries is profound because none of my clients really hit me up outside of session. They
Sure.
bring whatever they need to during the session. But before, I was bombarded every day. And that's
Mhm.
fine. This is an open space, but like it was too much.
Yeah. I'm not
Like,
tapped in right now.
yeah,
Sure.
like I'm like,
Yeah.
I actually plan today to like go on a hike and take care of me so I can take care of you tomorrow.
Yeah. It,
Um, yeah.
it made me think about too the like I believe we all have natural gifts that we bring to the world. And so as you're talking about these other interests of yours, like whether it's the guitar and the music or the dancing, what would you say are some of your gifts? And then how have you been able to integrate those gifts into your day-to-day life and probably the community around you as well?
Yeah, I think I'm just now getting to the point of integrating them into my community.
Right?
Um, I definitely think I have a knack for music. Um, I listen to stuff I wrote at 15 and I'm like, what the hell? Like this is so good. Like
Yeah.
definitely tapped into something. Um, and just to me, like a way that I transmute sadness is storytelling. So music gives me a way to connect with other people and also tell like sad stories that aren't always my own. I've written a lot of songs about addiction. I've never had addiction.
Right.
Um, not in like the normal sense, like exercise addict maybe, but
Yeah.
not any
Substance.
substances or anything like
Right.
that. But that doesn't mean I can't connect with people on that level.
Yep.
Um, I think another gift that I add in my day to day is I'm really good at channeling or like transmuting emotions through movement.
Mm.
And I didn't fully understand it until I even like was able to start tapping into light language, but like it's kind of crazy. Like I can be in the most fearful state ever, like put on a song that comes to mind and just dance through it, and I am like complete peace.
Mm.
And I didn't realize this until I was like in other spaces, but like other people would feel it too. So I do think that like although sometimes I hate being highly fucking sensitive, like feel everything when I walk in a room, I also have the capacity to like shift it
Hmm.
like rather easily if I allow myself. Because I used to like I stopped going in community spaces because I was having like weird things with my body all the time, like involuntary movements and like twitches, and like I would just say things like almost like you'd think I have Tourette's or something.
Mm.
Not as bad, but like still like a little odd, a little weird. And then I realized like, wait, this is my gifts coming through. Like it
Mm.
has nothing to do. And now I'm able to like use it a little differently. I'm not just like out here. Like for a while, like my arm would just like fly up and people would be like, and I'm like, I didn't do that. I
I'm not
don't.
sure. Yeah. Moving something around. It's almost you
Yeah.
turn the volume down sometimes. Like we're just gonna not do that right now.
No,
And then
I'm like,
yeah.
sometimes I'm like, and we're human. We're human right now.
Yeah. Back in the
But
room.
I would say like those are two of my gifts, and then just I don't know. I'm a girl's girl. I like to get around and just chat, but
Right.
if you gossip, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah. Well, how does that in your state of, let's say, chin down, head up, I forget what we called it there, but like your more internalized state for this season, how do you find that kind of plays in with your more natural tendency to just converse and gossip and these kinds of things?
I think this internal season is giving me time to create,
Mm.
where like I got coffee with a friend today and we were talking about like all the things that like we see in our lives and are building right now. And like to me, that was like super nourishing, super supportive.
Right.
But, you know, I have other friends that they just want to ask me a lot of questions or like want this or want that.
Right.
That's fine, but like it's not feeding me. So I have to like also learn to like put boundaries on that and not think that I'm a bad person.
Hmm.
Like I get crazy book DMs, and like at this point I'm just like I hear you. I see you. This is too much for me to respond to in a DM.
Hmm.
If you ever want to hop on a discovery call, the door is open.
Right.
And I just like how I'm intending for that to be received as like I actually give a fuck about you. And if I were to like waste my time in the DM right now, I'm gonna get resentful.
Hmm.
So it's more about like I'm trying to set the boundaries so that this could actually like be beneficial to both of us.
Yeah. I'll gladly give you a half hour of my time, but not on the DMs or whatever. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's,
Um,
do you find you're a conversation person? Like my perception of you is that you are very
yeah.
similar to me in that way. Like, I don't know. It's,
I've
yeah.
I've gotten I would say like I'm like 75% of the way there to like giving zero fucks.
Mm.
Um, and I can be perceived as like shitty sometimes, but that's not my responsibility.
Sure.
Like, I don't know, guys making like sexualized comments, and I'm like, not amused, don't care. And then the other girls fall into that fawn response.
Right.
And I'm like, well, fawn made me chronically ill, so
Yeah. And
not
both,
doing that.
both are honest, right? You're like, no, don't care. It's like, door is shut. Yeah. Yeah. Versus
And I
doors
don't,
cracked open. Yeah.
yeah, or uh, like when people are like, talking about all their like crazy adventures being like completely hammered and blackout, like that's not amusing to me.
Yeah, I don't care.
That's
Sure.
sad to me. Sorry, don't care.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Well, been there, done that, changed my decisions, and anyways, it's just not what I do. So yeah,
Yeah, we're like, I don't know. I've had people be like, conversation that keeps coming up. They're like, so you believe in God? And I'm
yeah.
like, yeah. And they're like, there is no God. I'm like, okay, how did we get here? From nothing. Okay. So, like, you realize that God is nothing, right? But everything all at once.
So that's
Like,
perfect layup to the what's your definition of God?
and then they're like, well, I guess I don't know how it got here. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't know the truth either, but I really like the idea that, like, there is a giant force that is helping guide me the way to live the best and most potentially fulfilling life that
Right.
I could live that creates infinite compassion and kindness in my environment. So that's how I want to live my life. If you want to just stay sad and traumatized, you do you.
Sure.
It's an option, it's a
The power
choice.
of free will. Yeah.
And we all have free will.
So this is something I don't know that I've ever remembered to ask it to anybody else. But I'm very interested in your answer. Thinking of the most difficult or painful thing you've ever experienced, what did you find yourself leaning into for strength, whether during or after the fact, in
Hmm.
context of God or I don't know, wherever that takes you?
So I've obviously had like really intense, tragic things happen, and I could talk about those, but like the first thing that comes to mind is like having like a full blown like exorcism with ayahuasca where I had no control, couldn't avoid it. Like I had no idea what was happening. And I'm very like open and honest with people. And like it is what it is because
Mhm.
I see this happen to people often enough. But like all I remember is that it was like I was in like a past life and these people were like brutally murdering me. And I was just like trying to get away from it, but by trying to get away from it, I was like trying to like bash my own skull in and
Mm.
like just like contorting my body and I had no idea what was happening. And so like obviously a bunch of people come to start helping me. But what's interesting is that I took on, no, this is mine. I fucking got this. Like I broke through enough to be like, nope, do not help me. Do not help me. And so they're like, all right, we're gonna let you ride it
Yeah.
out. Kept kept riding it out, couldn't break it. Eventually, like there's tools that people use when you're in that situation to break you
Mm.
from it. They obviously took the initial, we need to help her.
Yeah. Some sort of or step of
So
intervention.
obviously intervened, grounded me somewhat, but like the only thing I could think to do was like I need a hug. And then I just remember like all these people holding me.
Right.
But I realized like in that moment, like I've done so much of my life alone
Hmm.
that like the most healing thing for me to do is simply go, I need a hug right now.
Right.
Like, please hold me in this. And a lot, like, and I like, I mean, I'm very open about my ayahuasca experiences. Like, most of my ayahuasca experiences have shown me that I have to let go of this narrative. Like, only we can save ourselves, but at the same time, you need support in that.
Yeah.
So I've like almost have this like distrust even from like seeing like 20 different doctors 50 plus PTs, body workers, like no one being able to help my pain of like no one can help me.
Hmm.
But in turn, I've like pushed away this energy of like allowing myself to receive.
For sure.
So for me, it's like almost like it's unlearning like transactional love and like constantly like learning to receive from others as well as like learn to like give more to others.
Yeah. And that's sort of like this, I guess, more ethereal definition of what you're feeding into for strength.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's almost
Or
like
abstract.
yeah, the abstract would be like my strength I've found is like from unconditional love
Yeah.
and
My
the
mind goes
accept.
immediately to warmth. And that's a
Yeah.
me thing. Like I know that's one of the things in this world that I'm very drawn to and I'm very anyways, I hold dearly is warmth. But that's anyways, that's what I'm hearing. It's
So
similar.
like ayahuasca's put me in the most pain I've ever been in, but at the same time, like I had an instance where when I broke my back, I remember waking up and I was in the most pain I had ever been in my entire life. Like it felt like my clothes were burning me. It felt like something was like on my skin burning me alive, like just like screaming. I mean, for days screaming in agony. Nothing would help. Like painkillers didn't even do anything.
Hmm.
But I also learned, like, as you're saying, warmth, like my body was trying to get me to meet a need.
Yeah.
So like now if those symptoms come on, like I know I need to go like sit in a giant bathtub of warmth and like
Yep.
which seems counterintuitive. You think like I need cold if I'm on fire, but like
Yeah.
no. My body's like you need a cocoon of warmth. But I've also learned like with the energy work we were talking about, like with my Reiki, like it's like sometimes my hands literally feel like they're melting on fire from the
Mm.
energy, but it's power. Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's heat doesn't always need ice, right? Sometimes you need some wood on the fire, right? You burn it out.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a way
And
it's like the hand on the stove, right? It's an alarm to the stove's hot. It's like doesn't mean you want to let it go right away.
right.
Yeah.
So I hope that was a semi good definition of like my worst experience. But
Yeah, no, I'm just curious. Some people lean into religion and things. They're like, well, I found God or I, pray for strength and all these things. It's like I've never experienced that. And so that's one of the reasons I'm very interested to hear other people's experiences in whatever the difficult situations are. Like I've never prayed for strength. I've never put this sort of external source of anything. I'm like, it's the acceptance and this is where I'm at and I fucking got this. And there's no other, I don't know.
so like, well, and I think the reason I'm talking about plant medicine too is because I know I do my integration work. Like I know I do. I take every fucking ethereal thing that doesn't make sense, and then eventually I'm like, whoa, I get it now. Now I can like take this in my life. And like
Right.
I had like some weird, I don't know, like weird religious wounding where I was like, well, fuck God if he made me chronically ill. And like, fuck all this, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know if there is a God. Like I believe in a higher power, but like what is it? And then I had to like completely like redefine my relationship with God.
Sure.
Like a lot of that was like my own wounding of like these religious things that I'd been told, and like you're always told like pray to God and he'll heal you. And I'm like I always
Yeah.
think about like I broke my wrist and then it was like, well, pray about it. And I'm like, it's still fucking broken. Like
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now I think too, what I've learned from plant medicine is like when things are really intense, instead of go like, will you make it easier? Go, give me the internal strength to be able to handle this.
Yeah. Remind
And
me that I have the resources already. Boom. Yeah.
so
100%.
I would say,
100%.
yeah, like I have a very different outlook on a lot of these things. Because
I
like if
find same.
yeah, like if we're like it's this idea, everything we're all like my belief, like we're all fractals of God living a human experience. It's
Mm.
just about like learning the God within you. Like I keep going back to this statement, like walk into a room as though you are God himself, which like some people might think that's like narcissistic, but like no, I'm walking in with like infinite compassion
Yeah.
and of service to show my best self. How
Yeah.
I'm perceived, though, like, especially where I live, it doesn't mean I'm perceived well a lot of the times.
Sure. Right.
It's like, because once you start owning all your fucked upness, like, people are threatened.
You're a little strange. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
intimidation.
it's like,
There's a certain degree of envy. There's all these different things come up for sure.
and something I learned too with like just like financial world always being like just a struggle for me. Like I have this big fear of being envied,
Mm,
like because I don't want people to look at me as though I'm evil for like having things.
right.
So it's been like an interesting concept to like work through in myself and like see like I always come back to like God, money, and men are all the same energy, but it doesn't mean that all men are of God or that all teachings that we think are God are God and that like all money is for the purpose of the good.
Mm,
But when you like step into the energy of like, okay, so like how can I like almost approach it from like a divine masculine standpoint of like what is the utmost truth in this moment?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then embody that. Yeah,
It's yeah, and people go like, what the fuck is embodiment? I'm like, I don't honestly, I
sure.
don't know how to like define it, but I can like teach you to experience it.
Sure. It's the walk the talk, right? And whatever it
Yeah.
is that you are saying, that seems, or at least that's what comes to mind first for me. Like, what does embodiment mean? Means walk whatever talk it is you're speaking, right? It's like
Yeah.
lead by example, be the man that I admire, all these phrases, right? It's like, okay, there's a thousand ways to define that for me.
Right.
Yeah,
And then yeah, I don't think that healers that are entrepreneurs get enough credit for what we do, to be
mm,
honest. Because I'll think I work through something that comes up in a client session. Next thing I know, I'm walking through the fucking crossfires with them. And
sure.
I'm like, huh, woo!
But it's that familiarity, right? It's the comfort and it's the not, or the sense of not being overwhelmed from them, right? It's like, oh, they are not perceiving this as chaos, or they're not overwhelmed right now, and so therefore maybe I don't have to be either. Or at least they're guiding me versus we're just both lost in the fucking storm. It's like, oh no, I'll be the
And
fucking lighthouse. Let's go.
sometimes people just need to know they're not lost in the storm by themselves.
Yep, 100%. And that's
Like,
my, again, I go to warmth, whether
yeah,
that's conversationally or physically or whatever it is. It's like they want to know they're not alone.
I had a
Perfect.
client like cancel because she's like, I'm in a really negative headspace and like blah blah blah. And I was like, right, this is literally the perfect
Literally,
day.
this is literally the day you don't want to cancel.
Yeah. And then she
Yeah.
leaves the end of the session and she was like, everyone at work was like, you're in the best mood I've ever seen you in. And I'm like, this is why we do the work that we do.
That's right.
And like this is why I'm creating a membership where like people can log in daily and do like a 10-minute practice to like shift from like fuck the world to like I
Yeah.
love the world. Because it is possible.
Yep. Who do I want to be? Right? It's what are you aiming towards? And let's try to embody that. Right? Be them now.
Yeah, and
Um, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think one that has been and this might help someone that used to be an athlete and then ended up injured or chronically ill. Um, my identity of like wanting to be an athlete but being extremely restricted made me change my relationship with rest because athletes have to rest and recover harder than anyone I know.
Absolutely.
So, like, sometimes the most athletic thing I can do is go on a walk, do some mobility, and like sit in the sauna.
Hmm.
Like, athlete mentality. How is this going to get me to my goal? Right.
Recover.
Instead of looking at it as like, I'm a chronically ill person doing all this shit to heal. It's like,
Hmm.
no, fucking change the intention.
Yeah.
I'm no
Who
longer
and
doing things to fix my pain. I'm doing things to become the person I want to be, and the pain will go away regardless.
hmm yeah. Or regardless of the timeline that takes, like you still want to be that person, right? Whether you're that person with pain or without is less relevant than do you just want to be somebody else? Like, no,
Right.
I
And
don't.
I learned, I've seen people have instantaneous healings,
Mm,
and I got really curious on why that hasn't happened for me, especially when I've been in environments given the opportunity to have an
right.
instantaneous healing. And I get so much dopamine from the struggle.
Right.
Like there's a part of me that like gets off to like every day being this like uphill battle.
Yeah. Well,
And
get you
so
out of
like
bed.
yeah, so
Yeah.
now my work
Yeah.
is like infinite compassion towards that version of myself because she's not
Yeah.
ready to change and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm reminded of I'm almost always late for everything. One of the reasons for that is that I don't have a lot of energy to get up and go fast until I'm like, oh, fuck, it's 11 and I'm supposed to be there at 11. I'm on. Like, I know, you know how you go through that fog state of like, where did I put my keys? Where's my wallet? Blah, blah, blah. Like, ah, fuck, I only have one sock. No,
Right.
when I'm like running late, instantly, all that shit comes together. I'm out the door in 4 minutes and like, I'm on.
Right.
And that
Like
burst of
procrastinate.
energy is like, how do I access that without being late first? Like, I don't know. But at the same time, what's the consequence of being late? Situationally, there are consequences, and I can be on time. Most things, it doesn't make any fucking difference if I'm 5 minutes late or not. So I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Procrastination is your superpower.
Sure, yeah. It
Like
gives me the nitrous. Like, how do I access the nitrous in my body? I'll just run 15 minutes late all the time, and it's a fucking stressful thing. So,
I
yeah.
think what's interesting, and I won't go too deep into this. So, um, running late is synonymous with violate. And it's
Mm,
almost like a lot of times and this is because I used to be late to everything. It's like, it was almost like this like deep wound of like violation. So like, I'm essentially like violating other people's like boundaries.
mm,
And I was like winning in that. And that like might not resonate with everyone, but it was really interesting that like this ran in my family. Like I had this conversation with my mom where she was like, not being late to shit anymore was the hardest shit I ever did. And I
mm.
was like, fucking same. And we both agreed, like we learned it from my grandma
Right.
of like violate your time. Like, I don't know. It was very weird. But
Interesting.
yeah,
I never, I dated a girl one time who very much was not happy when I was running late. Um, and and I get it. She's like, well, you don't care about me because you're never on time. Like, it's just not, first of all, it's not true. Second of all, it's because I'm at the gym, which you are pumped that I'm doing. You like how fucking muscular I am. You tell me all the time. And so, like, there's all these things are true. And I'm coming to your house after the gym. So calm down about it. Right.
right,
But it's like, and you don't respect my time because you're not on time. Like, then just tell me to be 15 minutes later and I'll be right on time.
right,
You know? Anyway, so I see the other side of it. And I'm just like, I'm running and I'm trying to be honest, right? I said 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. I've got one more set on, you know, I'll be a bit behind. I'm coming. To me,
yeah,
it's not, and it's intention. It depends on the lens, right? Most things in life come back to intention for me. If I have malintention, that's one thing. It's
yeah.
like, I'm not trying to be hurtful. I'm not trying to be condescending. I don't want to be any of these things. I'm trying
Well,
to be
and
upfront and honest and clear.
if it was like malintention, you'll feel that guilt. But
100%.
if you don't feel guilt, if you don't feel like the way the person responded to you is like it seems like asinine,
Hmm.
like that's when you know you're not acting out of integrity. You're just
Yeah. I'm running behind.
and
Yeah.
yeah, which is a whole conversation in itself of like I don't know. I used to get gaslit for like being malicious, and I would be like, I literally don't understand what your problem is. I'm trying to understand the problem, and they're like, you're gaslighting me, and I'm like, I don't live in your body feeling what you feel.
Hmm.
So
This is a
I
communication issue.
just need you to say how you're feeling. And then, it would get to a point where it's like, I don't know, someone was like, I want you to text me every hour. And I was like, yeah, that's not possible.
That's not
So
happening. No. I'm gonna opt out of that option. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, what do I do when I go to a yoga class that's an hour and a half? They're like,
Yeah.
well, you tell me. And I'm like, this is exhausting.
Hmm. Yeah. No thanks.
Also, like, if it feels exhausting to like constantly communicate with a person what you're doing, they're not your person. But
Also a great tidbit just to throw out into the thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, like someone I'm excited about, I'm like, I'm going to a yoga class and I'm doing this and that. Like, talk to you later.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's done. Um, I guess to wrap things up, one thing I like to ask everybody, they say that what has got you to where you are isn't what's going to get you where you want to go. And so with that, I'd love to hear about how your internal dialogue has been shifting lately and how you see it shaping as you move forward.
So for me, um, I've been doing like a lot of identity work, I think is the best way to describe it. And I started getting like really clear on my limiting beliefs around who I am right now and who I actually want to be. Um, so I think that there's a time to like let certain things go and like be in this like really internal healing era. And then I think that there's times to like rise. So for me right now, it's like rise. But this time as I'm rising, I always like pray like God channel through me instead of like, I don't know, following any other way. Um, so for me recently, I've learned that I've taken on so much content these last 6 years, like insurmountable amounts of knowledge. And it's like very clear to me now that I don't need any more tools, but I need to integrate them all together. So for me, I wrote out like I'll never be a high level athlete because I'm chronically ill. And then I decided like that's bullshit. I can still do that. So, even with like my own coaching and direction, it's been like, okay, so I'm certified in like somatic trauma, yoga. I'm really familiar with Pilates, bodybuilding. I've done some breathwork certifications. I've done hypnosis certifications. I've done Reiki. I've done this. Let me just combine them all because
Hmm.
also I'm impatient and I want like the utmost healing for myself. So it's almost like just essentially like reinventing the wheel right now, of like modalities that people have already invented, but now I'm putting it together to work for me and work for people that work with me.
Yeah. It's a
So,
distillation process.
and another thing that's been really eye-opening, I committed myself to doing like a grief ceremony of my old self, um, every day this month, which might seem excessive, but like the more and more I've dug into it, it's like I can't go where I want to go if I'm still holding on to who I used to be.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a big shift of like, grief ceremony, like inviting in all the parts that I deem unlovable, unworthy, broken, and then going like, boop, burn in the fire, step into who I want to be.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been a really powerful practice for me. And I have no idea where I'm going, and I'm very honest about that. Like we talked about when you wake up every morning, you're like, I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
I have no idea where I'm going, but I do know the things that I want to feel day to
Hmm.
day. So
Yeah. It's like
essentially chasing feelings.
a different level of vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where like I can see like the big vision, but I can't see the like small steps. And that's where I just like tap into my body and I'm like, show me the small step.
Hmm. It's a tangible. Let's put it into the 3D world. And how do I do that today to move in the direction that I know I want to be?
And I'm getting really clear on why I have like a deep pull to work with men. And it's because my own masculine needs to like lead the way right now.
Mm.
Of like a lot of the coaches I've worked with, like I haven't had like action steps written out, and that's something that I need.
Hmm.
And so now, like every day, it's like I do have those action steps written out. I do have a process to follow. It's
Right.
no longer letting this like wild feminine flowy, which is great at sometimes, but
Yeah.
truly it ruined my life and I wrested my way into debt. So,
Yeah. Well, and now the structure of like, what do we do about that? And how do we reverse or not reverse, but really integrate all of this in moving forward? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just had to look at my value system. And that comes back to like a lot of my value system is just athlete, like move well, breathe well,
Mhm.
feel well, well-being. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Mic drop.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
people are like, what do you want in this life? I'm like to move well, to breathe well, and to feel well.
Mhm.
It's like that covers all my bases.
It
Like,
does. And it gives you a lot of options as to what that could look like.
yeah, because it's gonna
Like,
look different for everyone.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
me moving well now is like I look at like dancers and acrobats,
Mhm.
whereas like someone else moving well might be this like deadlift form, right? So
Right. Yeah, it was change being open to changing the definition of what that is, literally daily, or at least checking in regularly that you're not attached to an old story.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, 'cause
Which could
you
be a
have
whole
to
different
like
conversation. But
yeah.
anyway, uh, yeah. How can people get a hold of you, Rachel? How or where do you want to direct them to? Anything in particular?
I would direct them to my Instagram account.
Hmm.
It's at rachel.alexis.man. And currently I'm changing all my offerings, which you and I have talked to
Yeah.
outside of things. But as of right now, I still have my womb room coaching open, which is to help women transmute sexual trauma as well as any pain that they're having when it comes to like period health or just sex in general.
Hmm.
Um, I also have options to do Reiki sessions with me, and I also have an option to just do like an integration session. So, whether it's just you've ever worked with plant medicine or you haven't, like let's just integrate, let's see where your life is at, and let's do like a little somatic practice to like get you really clear on what the action step is.
And you can do that online.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
all online.
So reach out to your Instagram, connect if you're interested in talking more.
Yeah.
Cool. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time, Rachel. And like I said, it's been a long time coming. And so it's nice to
Yeah,
finally sit down and do this on record.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.